Buenas tardes and bienvenidos a todos. My name is Carlos Sotelo, co-chair of the Outreach Subcommittee of Latinos in Architecture, which is a part of one of the several committees in the American Institute of Architects Houston chapter. Today is the second of several short conversations where we will explore different professions. You might already start thinking of considering a career path or having to choose a track to focus as you enter high school. And hopefully these conversations will serve as an opportunity for you to discover, learn, and ask questions. Um, I hope you had a wonderful lunch and are ready to meet our speaker for today with our LEA Fall Series, A Chat with a Professional. We will invite you to type in your questions during the presentation and we will discuss them at the end of the presentation. Um, these conversations will also be recorded and posted to the AIA Houston website, where there would be a YouTube link that you'll be able to view later if you were not able to view it today. Um, Today, we have with us Jose Camacho, who is a supervisor of Veteran Affairs, and we will discuss later specifically on what his job entails and what department he deals with. But for now, Jose, we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us and tell us about your career path as a Latino professional and how you came about to that. So again, thank you for being here. And I'll leave it to the floor to you to kind of begin on talking about kind of your background and kind of where you started and where you're from.
Thank you, Carlos. Let me adjust this here. Okay. Thank you for introduction. Good afternoon, everyone that's joined us. Um, as um, as the group stated earlier, that this conversation is a piece of I guess my history to share with everybody. Uh, my path to my current profession. Um, as I wrote down some notes earlier today, as I prepared for this conversation with everybody, I stopped and thought, okay, so it's a conversation with professionals, particularly with the Latinos, and what's a professional? I know that I asked earlier who my audience was going to be, and as I understood, I believe everyone here is middle school aged or in middle school. So um, that's something that I wanted to make sure that I can relate to you all and that you all can relate to the conversation piece. So professional, I think the society or media or just what's the idea behind what's a professional. I think everybody first thing that one can think as a young child or a middle school age child or even a young adult or even adults in general, we tend to think oh, a doctor, a lawyer, or something, something to that we can relate. Oh, that's a professional. But I think a professional is more than anything, uh, what's one's profession. Um, Everyone has a profession. A teacher is a professional because that is their profession. Um, so in thinking about that, I know that when I was a kid, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But when I was a kid, I didn't really think about my profession. What was I going to be? I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if I thought about that particular word. I think I do recall like thinking, what am I going to be when I grow up? You know, uh, so that would come through my mind, you know, and that all started when I was a kid, in the very, very back of my mind. Probably the one of the last things probably in my mind back then, to be perfectly honest with you. Perhaps many of you are in that same boat now, and it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly fine. Um, I was I am a first generation American. My parents came to the United States from Mexico in the late 60s, early 70s. I was born in 1975. I started school in 1980 in an elementary school named Memorial Elementary. Um, this is actually, it is that elementary is in Memorial Park. So if any of you, know the area, um, back then I recall it was called the West End. Uh, Now it has different names. I don't know, Washington Heights or Rice Military. I don't know, some fancy stuff like that. But I can assure you that 40 years ago, it was far from fancy, that area. Uh, it was actually, what one would say would be the hood. It was the hood. So it was, what is a hood? Well, back then it was low income families for the most part, like myself and my family. First generation. And that was, that was my world. That's pretty much all I knew. And growing up in the hood, there was a sense of community there. Um, but as a kid, there was also more of a present day kind of, um, we got to survive through the day kind of mode, through the week, the weekend. So there wasn't many conversations about the future. Um, Perhaps you find yourself in that position now, or your family does. At any rate, because of the environment I was in, there wasn't much, I guess, planning ahead as far as um, what I was going to do. So I went through elementary, finally moved over to middle school, Hog Middle School. I'm not sure, maybe some of you, maybe one of you is attending Hog Middle School now. If you do, shout out Hog Razorbacks. This was in the mid 1980s. Um, the school was very tough. Um, there was a saying, if when I was going there, if you didn't fight, you didn't go to school. And that's pretty much true. So I think what you would call that nowadays would be bullying, a lot of bullying. But yeah, it was, there was some physical dangers back then. Um, so this was all real. And like I said, when I had to deal with all of that, that's why, perhaps my career or what I was going to do when I grew up was only in the very back of my mind. So, like I said, I was trying to survive through the day. And my parents, they both worked. My father had two jobs. Um, so a lot of these things, a lot of the dangers that I had to go through, um, to this, I haven't talked to them about it, to be honest, because they had a lot on their plate. They had to feed us. So um, I finally went on to high school. And this is where I really started to think about my career. So in high school, the goal was to get my college degree. Um, my high school diploma. And at that point, I started to mentally prepare myself to, college. So the very back of my mind, started to move forward as far as that thinking. Um, Little by little, it was hard thinking about the future because I, I mean, I wasn't one of the lucky ones, and maybe you are one of the lucky ones too, where at this point you know exactly what you want to do in the future as far as your career or your profession. Um, but I was not one of them. And I think that is actually the norm at that level. A lot of us don't. Um, a lot of us really, do not know. But we do know that we have to, or at least I knew that I had to complete high school, and and I did. I finally graduated from Reagan High School in 1993. Um, at that point, I did not know what I was going to exactly do. I knew I absolutely knew I had to do something. By this point, and when I graduated, I was already working. I started working at the age of 15. I think I was a sophomore in high school. I had a job. I had a retail store called Woolworth, and this was in Northwest Mall. That mall is no longer operating. It's still standing, but it's no longer operating. That was my first job, and I worked there. I then had a job at Hilo Auto Supply, which is currently O'Reilly. I I liked cars. I liked working with cars, so I kind of, I went to go apply there because I figured, I'd enjoy that, and I did. So this is where I kind of a light bulb turned on, I guess, in my head to where, okay, I started gravitating towards things that I liked. Um, so even though I didn't have a profession in mind or a career path, I kind of started figuring out, well, do the things that you like, and you'll enjoy a little bit better. It's pretty simple, I know, but it's a lot of times it's not that easy to figure it out, and we all will tend to kind of figure things out along the way. but but goals were always there. uh, the goal was to complete high school. I did. My next goal was to begin college. I knew I had to work. I had, I mean, that's just the way it was. Um, my parents, I had a lot of other brothers and sisters, and, I mean, we all kind of had to, just pull our weight in some way or another and help out. If it wasn't with some chores at the very minimum, maybe at least pay for for your own uh, books or something. They would always help us in one way or another, but we also had to provide, um, at the very least, our own books, or maybe some classes a certain semester or something, and I did that. So I worked part-time. I went to school part-time. I went to started at HEC, Houston Community College, in this was in the main campus, which is close to downtown. It's called Midtown now. Started there, had working on a couple classes. At this point, still didn't know what it was my profession was going to be, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing research, uh, history. I'm fascinated to this day by history. Um, I enjoyed numbers. I was pretty good with numbers, math. So I excelled in those areas. So at that point, I kind of figured, okay, this is kind of like where this is where I'm gonna really, I wasn't like numbers, but I wasn't really good in like science or biology or any of that. So I knew that the medical field was not gonna be for me. Um, as far as numbers concerned, uh, I figured, well, I think that that's gonna help me in some way or another. Well, at that point, an opportunity came up to apply at a bank. And I was good with numbers. I was pretty good with money, saving money, so I can, just pave my way through to college and just, do with what I had. And I got a job at the bank, and this was Texas Commerce Bank on Airline in the north side of Houston. It then became Chase Bank. It's still standing. So I worked there as I started, kind of middle of the road through college. Um, I transferred over to University of Houston downtown. Um, my goal was transfer there and then move on to the large campus, University of Houston Central. Um, the bank that I worked there on Airline was really close to the downtown campus for University of Houston downtown, and that worked out very well. I I actually stayed, so I was going to transfer over to the main campus, but I really enjoyed the downtown campus. Made a lot of friends, uh, like-minded people. Those are my friends, and we all had pretty much had the same type of goals in life and things. So I stayed there. I stayed there in the downtown campus. I graduated in 2000, May of 2000. I graduated at the top of my class, summa cum laude. Um, my goal at that time, during that time, was actually that. I was My goal was to get an A in every class. I worked hard for my money. I was going to uh, definitely put in my best work, my best effort. And so that happened. I graduated with the Bachelor of Arts in Social Sciences with a minor in Spanish. Spanish was my first language. I figured, why not? I mean, it's definitely not going to hurt in my career, ultimately, whatever I decide to choose. So I knew I could speak it, but I wanted to be able to master it, kind of, just be completely fluent, both speaking, writing, and reading. So I did. Um, and that has definitely helped in my career. So deciding the Bachelor of Arts, like I said, it's what I enjoyed. History, I enjoyed it very much. Reading, researching, writing papers, I really enjoyed that. I was good with numbers. I took statistics classes. Um, I was in quite a few projects in college with statistics, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Um, so towards the end there of my senior year, I applied to. Well, I was looking for various internships. You know, at that time in college, you kind of start looking for internships. To so you can set your path. Um, I stopped working at the bank so that I can really focus on my future there. And looking at various internship plans, I decided to go all in an internship for a program out of Washington, D.C. Is for colleges and universities. Um, so this was a competing program, and I had to compete, for the entry, um, for, I mean, students from all over the nation. And I was accepted. I was able to get in. And it was one of the few internships that actually uh, paid its students. So I received room and board, and I was going to be paid for it. So this was great. This was a pivoting point in what would become my career. At that point, I was actually, my plan B at that time was, if I did not enter an internship this way, I was going to, I had already begun um, preparing myself for LSAT, or, these are tests to join law school. So at this time, I accepted the internship, and I was off to Washington, D.C. At the time, there was two agencies. So this internship with the HAKU is specifically geared for Hispanic Latinos and joining federal agencies um, through internship programs. Um, and there was two agencies uh, that selected me, and I had to choose. One was Department of Human Health Services, and the other was Department of Veterans Affairs. Um, so, as I pointed out earlier, medical biology and all that was not my thing. I did not gravitate towards that, and that was Human Health Services and Department of Veterans Affairs. That that was more of a legal background. That was more uh, my kind of thing, and so I chose them. Um, so I was off to Washington, D.C., interned there. They sent me out to, from there, they sent me out to a regional, what's called Regional Sedan 7 back then. And this was in the Midwest. Uh, Midwest being my hub station there was in Des Moines, Iowa. So I was in Iowa. Worked in that sedan in Iowa, Nebraska, the Dakotas. So um, this was a great experience for me, um, and for others there as well. I was the only Latino there. I recall the very first day I was there at the Des Moines federal office. Excuse me. They called a lady. She was I think she was at the Social Security office. She was from Texas. She was the only other other Latino there in that federal building. Uh, at any rate, for some reason, somebody, I don't know, decided we needed to introduce each other. They needed to introduce us to each other. So it was really good. It was a great learning experience. And some of these folks, I know that we live in a big city, and there's a lot of diversity here in Houston. But you'd be surprised. I know I was when I went out there. I actually had a lady ask me, and I tell this story, not too much, but to close friends and family. I had one lady ask, and I forgot which town I was at. Some of these towns, they have, these are the places where veterans would go and seek help with with their benefits, and I'll get into that in a moment. But just a quick story where one lady asked me if, she was looking at me and kind of, just trying to figure me out, I think, and asked me, "Are you Italian?" And I was like, "No, I'm not Italian. I'm from Texas. I'm Mexican. I'm Mexican American." And she said, "Oh," she's like, "the only Mexicans out here work out in the fields." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, well, that's great, but not all of us do. So, those are important moments in life. So so finally, moving forward, the agency offered me a job, and out of either DC or the sedan where I was in Des Moines, Iowa, to work in that area. And I I told the agency that I would accept the position if it would be in Houston. I wanted to come back. Um, so after that internship, after all those months in that I was out there, I finally came back to Houston and started working at the VA regional office here in Houston, which is in the medical center. Um, and I've been there ever since for 20 years. Um, and I started as a veteran service representative, um, reviewing veterans' claims. So these claims are for disabilities for veterans. So when a person joins the military, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, any of those, you the veterans actually have quite a bit of benefits once they are discharged. They are honorably discharged. They have quite a few benefits available, and one of them is compensation and pension. I'm not going to go into great detail over that, but it is a department within that agency. The agency, the Department of Veterans Affairs, is a pretty big agency, but its only mission is to serve veterans and veterans' families. Uh, and in the department that I am in, that I started in, was for compensation for those benefits, which are if they're injured in service, many of them are. Um, we're talking about, maybe some got injured playing basketball at the, you know, with their unit or something. But others get uh, very severely injured in combat or in battles or in wars. So I know that during my internship, I was able to see, read their files and all their service. And when I started, there were still a lot of World War II veterans. And, you know, as I pointed earlier, I really enjoyed history. So I'm there, reading their history, and it was fascinating to me to this day. And doing research and working with all our various uh, regulations, laws and regulations. So this was quite exciting for me. I found what I liked, and I decided, well, I'm going to stay here, and this is the profession that I'm going to choose. So within that agency, there's a lot of what we call upward mobility. So when you start working there, there's entry positions, but then there's a higher position at following that. And so I did. I kind of what they would call, I would climb the ladder. I climbed the ladder, and in 2009, I was After a few position upgrades, about 3 from 2002 to 2009, I finally joined management. So I started in low-level entry management, and currently I'm in middle management. Middle management, I currently am over the appeals team. We have within our department, we have various departments in it, and I'm currently a supervisor for our appeals department. So when veterans receive a decision that they don't agree, they have rights to submit an appeal. Um, and here in the Houston RO, we work those appeals for those veterans, and I supervise a team um, of employees that work those appeals. So, and again, let me add something there. Let me track back a little bit back to 2009 when I made my decision for supervisory. Um, I, growing up or through college or any of, during that time, I was never much one to be a supervisor or something. In certain aspects, I was a leader. In certain areas, I was a leader. But I never aspired to be in a supervisory role or anything like that. It kind of just, it just happened. I know that as I grew in the agency, I was sought after for a lot of different projects, or I was ahead of a lot of different projects, or my bosses would give me quite a bit to do. Um, so at the time, I kind of just, I don't know, I kind of just figured, you know what, I'm doing so much, I might as well just apply for supervisory, so I can assign this out. I know how to do it. I know how to. Um, but that was a whole new profession now within that same profession. So even within those profession, once you choose your profession, there's changes even within. So there's areas for growth. Obviously, you grow in your profession. I'm still growing. There's still room for upward mobility. I know that I'm currently seeking some more promotion actually, which comes more responsibility. But again, there's the growth. I mean, um, there's always learning. There's always growth. So that's never that's never stopped. The goals, the planning, that doesn't stop, and it hasn't stopped for me. And as I continue, with my career, with my profession, I look at the same things I did, as I did 30, 40 years ago. Well, 30 years ago. Um, what is it that I like? Um, what are the things that I enjoy? Um, even to think, what are the things that I don't like? Um, I've always liked my weekends off. I enjoyed playing sports. Um, I liked exercising. So, those kind of things are the things that I thought of in getting to where I'm at in my profession.
Thank you, Jose, for that. That is really it's really great story, and kind of what was the kind of the beginning. You were talking about some of the struggles that you kind of went through, and I mean you and your family to kind of get to the point where you're at today. But there was something that I kind of found interesting, and you made a really good point about it, was that some of these middle school students, or maybe a lot of them, don't really know what they want to do. It's like still early in their kind of in their stage. But um, I was wanting to ask you, I guess personally, I guess when you're kind of in that, that stage of not really knowing what to do, were there like individuals, or were there like friends that kind of like let, guided you to maybe, oh, this is something that I might be interested in? Or was it kind of just like on your own, kind of you figured out some things that, you became more passionate about, or maybe this is something that I actually would like to do?
Um, you know, that's a very good question. And as I momentarily kind of talked about it, I think what kind of drove me was things that I did not want to do.
Hmm.
I know that I would sometimes go help my father where he worked, at his shop, and those were tough. The shop was hot. Uh, he was he was a welder. He
Yeah.
It was hard work. So I was like, well, yeah, I don't think I want to do that.
Right.
And he didn't want me to do that either,
Hmm.
so that kind of thing was there. And I mean, we would have speakers come out, kind of like what we're doing now. Um, and a lot of, some were firefighters or cops or
Right.
other things like that. And for some of my peers and other, that was fascinating. That's what they wanted to do. I kind of didn't want to. I didn't want to do that. It wasn't until just later on in high school. But at the moment, I was not overly concerned, obviously,
Right.
um, with that. And I know that can be stressful. I think my recommendation is to not stress out over that. It'll come.
Right.
Uh, it comes to us
At different
all
stages.
different, all differently, and look at. I think that what's important is look at those things that you like. It's there. I think it's there. Um, we all have talents. We all excel in certain areas. Um, so I think the answer to that question is there. Um, and it's just a matter of time until one can figure out of, you know, I'm not artistic at all. So I knew that architecture or engineering or any of that stuff, I mean, I'm horrible at that. I could barely, if you ask me to draw, I'm gonna do stick figures. I don't
That's
have
nothing wrong with
that
that.
imagination.
Right.
I don't have any imagination on that. I think one thing I will say is at that age in middle school, and it was an actual goal of mine. I mean, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player.
Hmm.
Uh, I loved baseball. To this day, I love baseball. Um, and that was something that I really thought, I was going to do. So, our dreams, I mean, are important. That dream of mine, I played it. I played adult, I played high school, I played adult. I currently have three boys, and guess who their coach is? Guess who teaches them baseball? Uh, so, that dream was not in vain.
Right.
So don't give up your dreams. Continue them.
That's good that you point that out, because you always think about, oh, what are some things you're passionate about, but you're right, you kind of have to look at both sides of like what you don't like as well, to kind of start seeing, comparing. So that's actually a very good recommendation, for kind of kids to kind of start looking that out. And like you said, they don't have to necessarily you don't have to necessarily figure it out, but like there's the things that you know begin to help you guide you as you kind of get to that stage. So for some people it comes earlier, for some people it just comes a little bit later. So um,
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with that. We all have, we're all different. We're all absolutely all of us are different. And there's no right or wrong, and when we set our path or our goals. But I think, we all have to be who we are. and don't be afraid to be who you are, and don't
Right.
be afraid of your goals, and don't be afraid of your,
And I guess that was kind
your
of gonna
path,
go to my
and don't be afraid, and then you.
right. Yeah, see, that was kind of leading to my kind of last question. Um, well, I guess we'll just last two questions here. That and maybe you've kind of already answered this before, but I guess what, like, as you're kind of in that middle school, like, I guess you kind of gave a recommendation, but if there's anything else you want to kind of add on to that, any advice or anything that you want to just add on before we wrap up here.
um sure, don't be afraid to ask questions. You know Please ask questions. If you have any questions for me, if you don't have any now, but something come up, you know, move them up the chain through your teachers, through whoever you can reach out. But don't be afraid um, to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be a risk taker. Uh, don't be afraid of challenges. You know, it's okay to go for it and not get it. It's fine. Just like we celebrate our accomplishments, we have to be accountable for everything. We don't always accomplish everything we do, but don't be afraid to be a risk taker, and be accountable for it either way. In other words, put your best effort in it, and ask questions along your way. I think that this program that you're in is great. It's super valuable. The Haku program I was in, it was great. I mean, pivoting point.
Right.
Um, so, those are, you know, reach out. You're not alone. So I think that's gonna be something that I want everyone to, take away today is reach out. You're not alone. Be a risk taker. Take your challenges. Take a challenge. You put your best effort in, you are going to succeed.
I agree. Very. I think we can wrap up there. That was perfect. Again, thank you very much, Jose, for taking time off your busy schedule to this morning or this afternoon. And wish you the best. And again, thank you very much. And I think this is going to be very valuable to some of the students who were able to see it, and I guess who can see it later on once we get the video link up. So again, thank you very much. Um, and yeah, we can. There'll be the next Friday. We'll have another one of these. So again, thank you very much, Jose. You have a
Thank you for having me.
you have a
Thank
good
you.
good rest of your weekend.
Thank you likewise.
Thank you.